You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos Podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Maro Yeranossian, and I'm joined by a very special guest, my own sister, Maro Yeranossian.
Hi.
So, Maro, tell a little bit about yourself to our audience.
Well, I like anime, I like country music, and of course, I'm Vaughan's sister, and today's my birthday.
Yeah, so this is a special birthday episode of Authentic Chaos for my dear sister. She is 29 on April 29th. It's it's a big deal, you know, like getting those, you know, a lot of people believe that numbers have power and that there are special things to numbers. Like some people call them angel numbers or something like that. And like, I think there is something to be said about turning the age that your birth date is on.
Yeah.
So how does it feel? Does this birthday feel any different compared to the others?
A little bit. It feels like I can definitely tell I'm like getting like something's gonna happen. So hopefully something good. But I feel like it's gonna be a good year.
Okay, so let's talk about that feeling feeling a little bit. So like you mentioned something is going to happen. So like where does this feeling kind of come from for you?
I feel it mostly comes from my heart. Like I feel like my heart knows that something's going to happen. That's going to be a good thing that will probably bring my whole body up to speed like that I'm going to be growing as a person.
Okay.
So we'll see.
I like that. You know, on previous episodes when we talked with Jason, we talked about this idea of like a mind, body, soul, like a mind, heart, soul connection, and that you need all three of these to really like be in sync in order to truly feel yourself. So it's great that you feel something in your heart that's like driving you towards something.
I think it's mostly just want me to explore, like, because I want to travel more. So I think it's like trying to get me to get out of my comfort zone more, and at least before a certain age, so I can at least explore, and then I'll be ready to get into like a normal routine people think of that's normal.
What does normal look like for you?
Like, just getting into a relationship, having that like evolve, like going into a new good routine, going through a certain path that my mind, like I'm going to be setting out for myself.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned that, so you specifically said a normal path that like other people think of as normal. So do you think it's normal just because other people think it's normal, or is this something that you want?
It's something that I want. I try to like be who I can be, and sometimes I think I like get off my path. So hopefully that I can go back into the path I want.
That's interesting that you talk about like who you want to be and like getting off the path, you know. I think it's not an uncommon experience. A lot of my friends and a lot of people I talk to like experience similar things where they sort of set on a path. They feel like they understand themselves, but sometimes things take us away from it. Whether it's like work, stresses from work, or stresses in a relationship, or just sometimes life itself. Like sometimes it's hard for us to really sometimes we get taken away from that path. So what do you think has been taking you away from this path?
I think, I don't know for sure, but I know something in my mind is telling me that I've gotten off my path and it's trying to point me in the right direction.
And do you think so? You first mentioned that you wanted to travel.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like traveling will help you get back on this path?
I think it will help me like settle and get to like take it off my wish list, and hopefully that will go to where I need to. Because I feel like traveling is part of the rite of passage. And I haven't traveled that much, at least by myself. Mostly it's with family, of course. So I want to see if I like how it would be like to be by myself and to a group. So,
but as a little bit of back context for listeners, last year we did take a trip together, which that was your first overseas trip, right?
Yeah.
We visited our homeland of Armenia, and we visited Greece. And so maybe we should talk about that. So that was your first overseas trip.
At least with the siblings, of course. And
Oh
then
yeah,
seeing mom.
but still that was like a big move. It was your first overseas trip. So what drove you to say yes to a trip like that?
I've always wanted to go to Armenia and to travel out there. So it was like something in my mind was opening the floodgates saying, we got to go. It's time. It's time to go. We need to get this out of the system. And it's one of the wish lists I wanted to do. I think it happened when Grandpa gave me for my birthday one year 100 places to go before you die, which that's not really something you want to read on your birthday. But one of the places, it was like the 50th or something, was Armenia. And I'm like, well, that's on my top list.
Yeah, I mean, because like we have heritage there and family there. We still have family there.
Yeah, and I wanted to see them and at least meet them in person other than Skype.
Yeah. So you talk about traveling in terms of like wish lists and bucket list items. And I hear a lot of people do that. They talk about like their bucket list, and everything is in the context of things I want to do before I die. So do you feel like that is what driving you to travel? Like this kind of like fear of missing out on traveling?
Yeah. It's part of, like, I don't call it my bucket list because I'm scared to die, of course. But I call it a wish list. Like, I wish I would go to like Japan. So I'm planning the trip to go there. And it's like, because I watch a lot of anime and stuff. So I want to experience what I see on the shows.
Yeah.
And to know what it's like to be in the places that the animes were made.
Okay.
The manga.
So that's an interesting point. So let's talk about like your visit to Armenia, because like we grew up in an Armenian household, and so we had exposure to at least a version of the Armenian culture. So what was it? How did it feel actually going to the country?
It felt different than what we were growing up with, and it felt nice at the same time, like to see what people like have evolved into, like how the city, as we've seen the old pictures. It's cool to see how it's evolved and to experience it in real life.
And how was it for you? Did it bring up any feelings? Did it bring up any sensations? Did it justify your desire to travel?
Yeah, it actually brought up the like accomplishment that I actually came. I've seen, I got proof, and now I can go travel more and to experience more.
Okay,
so it got me excited.
So it felt more like a checklist, like entering the door of travel.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like how the passports have stamps on it.
Yeah.
It was basically, as soon as I got the stamp, I was excited. I got there, and now I got to move on.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about traveling in places where you don't get a stamp, like within the U.S.? You find similar excitement when you're like, you have a trip coming to the Florida. Do you feel a similar excitement when you go there?
Not really, because I've been there. I can speak their language, but going to different countries, you don't know the language, so you have somebody to interpret for you. So it's nice to experience the different culture, because if you're doing it in the States, you know the culture.
Well, but
you know it.
Do you though? Like we're in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm currently in my house, in my old house, with all these beautiful plants that my mom takes care of. But would you say that the culture of Florida or like this American South is similar to the culture in like the Midwest?
Like the climate's different, yes, but
what about the culture?
It doesn't really feel like there's much culture in the South, because the only difference to me is how they say the words.
Really?
Like,
so you've never experienced the culture of the South?
No, I don't think I have, because it doesn't feel like there's a culture. Like, I love country music, but to me, that's just like, that's different when you're in Florida. Florida doesn't really feel like culture.
Why not?
I don't know how to. I don't know. It just like I feel like America in the fullness just borrows culture from like the Europe and stuff like that. So it's not like it doesn't have its own culture.
That's an interesting perspective. So what are some cultural elements that that you think are borrowed in the US?
The food. I think the food is basically like they bring it in, but they put their own spin on it.
Okay.
So it's like, oh no, this is different, but kind of is the same thing. If you're not gonna like evolve it more, or at least you have the recipe, at least make it your own. Make something else out of it.
And you think that we don't have that in the US?
I don't. No, I don't think so.
At
least not that I experienced.
I think I would disagree. In fact, this is something that I've talked about with a lot of friends about like what is American cuisine. Like, yeah, maybe we don't have like maybe from so like what do we think is American food?
Burgers and ribs, of course, to them. And
okay, but like ribs are more of a southern thing. Like we don't really do ribs here in the Midwest.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. I just never really thought of it like as culture.
Why not?
I just thought of okay.
Well, what is culture to you?
I guess the experience of like how we grew up. It was like the Armenian culture is like it was in our system. They learned about it from our parents. But when our parents like came or dad came, it's like there's not much culture, so he just kept with the Armenian culture, and there's not much culture to me.
So what is culture?
History.
Culture is history.
But
does America not have history?
I wouldn't call it like history because it feels like it's just borrowed history from other places.
So you're saying that
history,
but we've been. I mean, America even before the Europeans were here, there were people here, and when the Europeans came, that was 200 or so years, 230 years ago, 240 years ago. Wouldn't you say that like some history has developed in that time?
I guess so. Like Thanksgiving was technically brought here, and no one else has it. But I don't know.
And like Independence Day, and even like fried food, like fried chicken culture. Like in the South, there's a lot more fried foods, right? Like like Southern style, like fried chicken and waffles. Those are like specifically cultural things in the South that we don't really have in the Midwest. Like, yeah, maybe it's spread around, but there are these originating things. And so I have this philosophy that like wherever there are people, there's culture. And over time, unique cultures will form. So the South is like stereotypically has like a culture of warmth, of like this Southern warmth of like people bringing you into their home and like feeding you these delicious foods and lots of like grilled meats or fried meats. And in Florida especially, there's a huge like Hispanic population from Venezuela, from Cuba, and they bring their own culture, right? Just like the Armenians that moved to LA and New York and even Cleveland brought their own culture. Wouldn't you say that the Cubans and the Venezuelans probably brought their own culture too?
Yeah, I guess so.
And the people that live in like even in the middle of Florida that you're going to, they probably have their own culture. Like they have their neighbors, they've probably come up with their own recipes, right?
Yeah. It's just that's my interpretation of America, but
why do you feel like that? Because I've had friends who are not from America who've traveled here and like found a lot of different cultural elements to it. So what do you think you don't see that they see?
I don't know. Can we skip it?
Could it potentially be that like, I mean, maybe it's because it's your home.
Yeah,
the country you were born in. Yeah.
It's just, I think that's it. I'm just so used to like growing up into it. I just don't really see what people see.
Yeah, but like that doesn't mean it's not there. But
it's just not my eyes.
Yeah. So maybe So in one of my episodes, one of my latest episodes, my audience will remember, maybe you do too, I talked about traveling your own home. And that, you were talking about traveling overseas and going to these foreign places as like there's novelty to it, right? Like you said, like you don't know the language, you don't know the food, you don't know the culture, you're trying to figure everything out. But what makes the US different from going to other places? What makes like going to Florida different from going to Armenia besides like the language?
I guess it doesn't really make a difference because it's just in home. It's United States. There's not really much difference. You don't really fly that far.
Yeah, but do you have to fly that far to really experience something new?
I guess not. It's just, I don't know.
Like let's say even in our own small town that we live in, would you say that every household has the same culture and traditions?
No.
Yeah, so isn't that culture?
Yeah.
So if every house doesn't have the same traditions, why would we expect Florida to have the same exact traditions as Ohio?
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't really have that much expectations for different states.
Well, maybe what you should do, and maybe this will help make the trip a little bit more exciting. Try to travel to the States just like you traveled to Armenia and Greece. Maybe don't expect everything to be just the same. Try new things. Get to know the people. Like see the different plants. One thing that I love to do when I travel is smell the different smells and see the different trees, the different plants that are growing. Because even in the U.S. is a huge country, tons of different climates. Like I live in Seattle, and I come back to Cleveland now and then, and even like I can tell the difference. Even our trees are different. Like in Seattle and Washington, we're the evergreen state, so lots of pine trees, right? But you don't get many of those in Ohio. You have a lot more of these like low trees that kind of cover the distance, and like Ohio is a lot flatter, so you can see for miles and miles and miles, while like Washington is at least the part of Washington I live in, is very mountainous. So like you're surrounded by these mountains, which I had never, for the longest time, I had never lived near mountains. I grew up in Ohio for the first 21 years of my life, and it wasn't until I moved to California for grad school that I saw mountains like really close, like next to my home that I could see, and it was wild to me. It felt so strange seeing these giant rock formations, these giants in the distance, and that's just in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I challenge you, and I challenge our listeners and our viewers to really explore with new eyes. Explore your home with the eyes of a traveler, with the eyes of someone new who hasn't been here before. And I think you'll find some exciting things.
Well, I'm excited to go where we're going. I haven't been to this part of Florida, so we'll see what I think.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear about like how the adventures go, and get some beach time, get some like time exploring the state a little bit.
Mostly exploring. Beach, not really my thing.
That's fair. Beaches can be very like divisive for people.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Okay, yeah. So I love the idea of that you want to travel. So what's what are some places that you want to travel to next?
Japan. I want to see China at least once. India. I do want to go to Ireland.
Ireland?
Yeah, that would be fun to see.
What about Ireland? It seems to be a little bit. That's the one that doesn't fit the others.
Right? I don't know. I've seen so much scenery of like you see it like when you go to dentist office, they have like sceneries and stuff. I do want to see like certain like cliffs. There's some certain places I want to see there. I've read a lot about it, so I'm excited. Dad and I want to see more redheads.
Yeah. So as a bit of an aside, my siblings and I all have different hair colors, which is very funny and very strange. So like, I'm a brunette, my sister is a redhead, and my brother is a blonde. So
people don't think we look alike, which makes sense.
Yeah, phenotypes are weird like that. And I did want to call out the elephant/dog in the room. Your little doggo, Puff Puff.
Yeah, this is my little baby.
You want to talk a little bit about Puff Puff?
Well, he is 3 years old, and he can be a devil.
I'm sure. I've heard of parents call it the terrible twos or terrible threes. So like,
he's just terrible. Sometimes, at least,
but in a good way, right?
In a interesting way. He actually has run away a couple times, but okay, maybe more than handful of times. But he does come back.
So, that's good.
He had helped us find the holes in our fencing. So plus. And he does fight with our older dog who does not like that.
Well, let's talk about your specific relationship with Puff. What got you to get a dog in the first place?
I was lonely in my own apartment because I moved out. I was fine for the first year, and then I just started getting lonely. I was actually talking to the walls for a second.
Oh, and not to interrupt, as a little aside, you can put the mic a little bit further from your face because I think we're hitting the red zone a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think so.
You're projecting very well. That's what it means.
That's good. I was worried.
You have an excellent voice for podcasting.
That's the first to hear that. But okay.
Okay, so you're lonely. You're talking to the walls, and so how did getting a Puff Puff help?
Well, because I was like, whenever I talked to the walls, it was like I was talking to Grandpa, and I just needed something to support me because I got a little depressed after he passed, and I didn't really show it. But when I was alone, it was hard. So he was basically like a support dog. Got him.
Yeah, and do you think that helped you handle the grief?
I think so. It's not as bad as it was, but it's been better. So I'm glad he's with me, and he notices when he actually can sense when I'm not feeling up to it. So he knows when to.
Like you have like a connection with him.
Yeah.
Lovely. I like to think that we have a connection with every living thing or everything. Like we may not know what the connection is yet, but that's something to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Something to investigate in relationships. That's something in friendships and family members, even in like pets, right? Even plants.
They can sense.
Sometimes I talk to my plants because like it can be like plants can communicate. They may not be able to, just like dogs, they may not be able to speak our language and we may not be able to hear them, but they are communicating with us.
Especially when they snuggle.
Yeah.
And it's rare for him to snuggle with me.
He seems very calm and very like at peace with you.
Mm-hmm. And he likes tight spots. So. He's happy.
So if you're open to it, I would like to talk a little bit about your grief process. And a little bit about Grandpa.
Okay.
If you want
talking
to.
About Grandpa, but not about the process. It's hard. It's a hard process.
That's fair. Grief is a very difficult process for all of us to deal with. In fact, I went through like a grieving process around that similar. And for me, it really helped going to a therapist. I was seeing a therapist at the time, and I just my therapist helped me really conceptualize different grieving styles. He described it as different people treat grief differently. So some people describe it even differently. Some people describe it as going into the dark basement and digging up the bones, like the shadows. Some people see it as a downward spiral. But grief is a necessary part of healing. It's difficult and it's hard. It's very difficult because it requires us to kind of open up, but also to replay the pain, the memories that cause us pain. But we have to do it. That's part of the healing process. I've gone through a lot of painful moments in my life, and I found that for me, what helped finally stop the power that they had over me was when I just let them play. And I call our negative memories like it's almost like a scene in a movie, right? And this is a bit of taking from a little bit of mindfulness and Buddhist philosophy, that like there's this idea that emotions are not negative or positive. They just are. It's our mind, it's our ego that actually puts judgment on them. Like, this is a good thing emotion, this is a bad emotion. But really, there is no such thing as a good or bad emotion. That's all judgment. Emotions just are. And when we hit pause on an emotion, it's like hitting pause on a scene in a movie. We can't complete that movie until we unpause. And we can't skip it because our brains don't let us skip it. We think we can outsmart our minds and that we can just hit pause and then put it away, and then maybe one day we'll like deal with it. But our brains kind of replay it, and they'll replay it at the least opportune moments. When we don't want it to happen, we'll be thinking about, like, maybe you've experienced this, dear listener, maybe you've experienced this, Mara, where you'll be thinking about something, you'll be doing something, and then suddenly a thought hits you, a memory hits you that's super painful, and you'll start crying, or you'll feel super uncomfortable, and you'll be like, why is this ruining this moment? Why now? Why me? Why now?
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times.
Yeah. But it's not the universe punishing you. It's not God punishing you. It's just your brain playing these like memories, because it's kind of like a survival mechanism. Your brain is thinking, hey, this is a painful memory. Clearly, we need to keep reminding you in case this is key to your survival. So it seems like this shouldn't be the solution, but the solution is to just let it play out. We can't remove ourselves from the power of these emotions and these memories until we let it play out. And sometimes that means taking a painful walk and just crying and just thinking about it and just meditating on it maybe, but just giving it the space it needs to. And when it finishes, it's like the clouds open up again and the sunshine back in. I can use another analogy too. I like this analogy too. Emotions, especially painful ones, are like storm clouds. Storm clouds come and go. We can't yell at the sky whenever storm clouds come out. If we do, we can't control.
Crazy.
Yeah, you seem crazy if you're yelling at the sky, at the clouds, for how dare you.
Oddly enough, I've done that a couple times.
Yeah, but like, has that helped?
No,
And
a little bit.
Did
Sometimes, yeah.
Did the clouds go away?
No.
Exactly. In fact, you focusing on them actually makes them feel like they last longer.
Yeah, they do.
Because your whole attention is on that cloud. But if you go about your day, suddenly the clouds go away. And if you let your emotions pass, hey, those storm clouds will pass and you'll have a nice sunny day right after that.
That's true. It's just sometimes it's hard to ignore the clouds and focus.
But like, what drives your attention to that?
I don't know. I think it's just my mind and my heart were finally in like a moment they were like not connecting and saying my body was basically focused on the emotion and the memory out of loop. So it was sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, it's interesting pointing out this like unsynchronization, this discordance between the mind and the heart, and you kind of need everything to be in agreement for you to like live a harmonious life. If your mind is saying like this isn't good, but your heart is saying this is fine, then that's not great either. You kind of need everything to play together.
Yeah. Because after like a month or so after he passed, it was my mind kind of numbed itself out. So I just went with my business. Every now and then, when no one was paying attention, I would bawl my eyes out, and then I would just go back to being like it was like a robot. And then every now I would have a crack in the shell.
Why did you feel that you had to hide the tears?
I don't know. I try to be strong, and it was hard. Luckily, it was like I was getting signals saying I got to get out of here. I got to get away from this area for a while.
So, why do you? So you mentioned that you had to be strong. Do you think that strength and being emotional are like can't be done at the same time?
At least at that time, I thought so. And then I had a realization: why am I doing this to myself? It's like it's not healthy for me. And then when I moved out of the city,
Yeah.
it actually felt better for me. I needed to get away from here.
That's good. Do you think like coming back to your roots and being with family helped out too?
Yeah, I think it actually made me feel better.
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, I'm finally done with the healing, my last healing process. I've accepted it. Because for a while I was mad at it and everything. I hate to say it, but I was a little suicidal. And
Really?
luckily Puff Puff kind of helped me save me from that. I never wanted to share that with the family. It was hard because I was really close to Grandpa, so it was a hard timing.
Yeah. I you know what? We can honor his memory and his spirit by like remembering some of the good times. If you'd like to.
Yeah, it helps.
Let's do that. Would you like to start with like a good memory, and then I can go with memory too?
Yeah. One memory I always loved whenever we would always go to church because he would make me go to church with him because I was his ride. He loved my car because it was the Kia Soul, the one that he could just step up and he's like, I'm in.
It was easier for him, yeah.
But every time we would go to church, our priest had a very soothing voice. So he would do his sermon. We were just sitting down. I would nod off. And Grandpa, by that time, he had his cane or a walker. He would knock me on my shin just to wake me up. So come on. And by then I'm like, Grandpa, I'm listening. I just have my eyes closed.
Just let me rest my eyes for a little bit.
But our priest would see it and like smile and walk away. Keep going. I'm like, that would happen every time. I'm like, I'm okay.
You know what? When the Armenian church had especially long services, like 3 hours, like most people, like it started at 9, went till noon. Most people didn't show up until 11. Yeah. So if you're showing up early enough, like a lot of it's all the same. Yeah. You know, getting a little Sunday snooze in, not so bad.
Unless you're with your grandparents, then it's a bad thing.
That's cute. I love that.
We would go at 10 o'clock. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I had enough time, but it
not too early, but not too late.
It's not enough time for him, though. It was always my favorite moments, but it's hard now going to church. So, but yeah. I would always remember that.
I think for me, like so like I was very close to him. He was a very important figure in my life. You know, he was there for a lot of difficult moments in my life, and also a lot of really good and very early moments. In fact, some of my most favorite memories of him, or like the most meaningful memories with him, were when I was really young, and like mom and dad had just gotten divorced. These are the early days of the divorce, so I was about 6 or 7 at the time, maybe 8. And occasionally I would stay at his old place with him. And like every morning we would I would go lie down in bed with him, and we would just like stare at the ceiling and just talk about like the divorce, and talk about my feelings, and talk about like the pain I was feeling, and just how I was rationalizing it. And just like getting his reassurances and getting like this supportive like third party almost like opinion was really helpful for me to make sure to like conceptualize that like my parents weren't taking the divorce very well, and I was being treated as kind of, or I felt like I had to be the intermediary between the warring families. And it was really, really great and really healing to hear from him that this wasn't normal, and that I was very strong for doing this, and that I was wise for doing this. And like it's just great having that like those affirmations at such a young age. And then I remember working so he was an Oriental rug salesman.
I love that place.
He was in the business for a long time. So in like high school, I would work at the store and just hang out with a bunch of old rugs.
I think all his grandkids were there for a while.
I think
working
so.
there.
It was like a rite of passage, like being in the family and working in the shop, and like
it was my favorite place.
Yeah, it was great. It was a fun place to hang out, roll around. And when we were young, we'd roll around in the rugs, get rug burn. That was less fun.
That was less fun, but it was fun being around the rugs. It's like part
and
of the
doing
family.
like deliveries and seeing how they did repairs. Yeah, it felt like it felt like we were kind of connecting with our history and our culture in like a unique way, because like tapestries are a big part of Armenian culture and like Persian culture, and our grew up in Tehran, so it made sense that like this was part of our upbringing too. And it was cool. It was like seeing a little bit of him through our own childhood.
It was sad when he retired, and it's like, okay, no more store.
You know what? All things must end in the end.
I know. I actually wanted to, like, I was once told him, I was like, Grandpa, just give me the store. Mom and I can take care of it. He straight up said no. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think that was for your best interest. Yeah. I think he realized that no one really buys like handmade rugs anymore. Right now, these days people buy like
those shaggy rugs.
Or they buy rugs on Amazon. They don't know where it came from. It was probably made in like a sweatshop in like
Not
China.
The nice kind of rugs.
Yeah, none of them are like handmade and hand woven. In fact, it's really hard to find like hand woven textiles anymore, like clothes or like rugs or scarves. And so I think like if you can ever find that, like support those communities that are support the communities that are doing it, because it's art. Like every one of those rugs told a story, and like he could look at a rug and say like exactly where it was from and what time period it was from.
It was amazing when he had that. I'm like, how do you remember all this? He's like, I got this. Okay.
Yeah, and it's cool like having that, like his mind was like this history book basically of all of these like facts of all these villages in like India and Iran and Armenia, all based on like the qualities of the rug and the paint, the dyes that were used, and the symbols that were used. It was amazing how he knew all that.
I was like, I had to look at the books he had, and I'm like, get these.
I know, and like we don't. It's hard to have that same like encyclopedic.
Like, I've got connections. I'm like, okay.
And do you think you know something as deeply as that?
No.
Like this day we've got the internet,
phones.
We've got phones, like we don't need to have that kind of knowledge. So it was really cool having that like historical knowledge.
He was our history. He was the history book right there.
Yeah,
we didn't even need our history books.
And he also introduced us. I think he introduced us to spicy foods. Like,
oh yeah, even though he couldn't taste them.
Well, later in his life, he couldn't like taste them. But like,
he basically burned his taste buds off. Yeah. Whenever he's like, no, it's not spicy. He's like, ha ha ha.
I remember one story where he tried to make his own spice mix, and he didn't have like a spice grinder, but he had a coffee grinder. So he like roasted some peppers and then threw the seeds into this like coffee grinder, and the smoke, the dust that came out of it almost choked him.
Remember him? I don't know. I think you were with us. He had the ghost peppers, and he would just like every slice. He's like, no, I don't taste anything. Everyone was like, grab the milk.
Yeah. So yes, in your old age, if you eat enough spicy food, you can blast away your taste buds. Turns out.
And it's like spice is basically part of the culture of Armenia.
Yeah.
So, but now it's like need more spice. It's like don't do doer. We've learned.
Yeah. He was I think we can say he was a super important part of our childhoods and even in our early adulthoods.
Yeah, he had a lot of life lessons, and it was nice hearing it. And then we, of course, Uncle Harry, whenever he came, they were crazy when they were together.
Yeah, they were great friends, and he would always push our grandpa to drink and like party, and it was always a good time.
Yeah. Even when grandpa got older, it's like, oh, let's just check out your nurses. I'm like, dude, please, you're at the age you don't need to.
He was very popular in that nursing home.
Oh yeah, he definitely was. There was so many people at that his funeral. I'm like, does he remember all these people?
Did you ever walk with him in the nursing home?
Oh yeah, every now and then I'm like,
all the women in the nursing home, all of the older women were like, "Hi, John," like clearly like very
even the
interested
workers,
in him. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
he's a very like
Grandpa, you're a ladies'
very
man
eligible bachelor.
It was kind of creepy to me a little bit, but it was I was happy for him.
I mean, you know what?
Weird for grandkids to see that.
Love is available in all the ages. Don't ever think you're too young or too old to like find love.
No, you never are. As long as you're by yourself, but if you're with your significant other, you'll be fine. He was good by himself, but he would always tell me, he's like, I just want to see your grandma again. That's all I need.
Yeah, he is together at last.
Yeah, before he passed, he would always tell me, oh, I keep seeing your grandma in my dreams. I'm like, how's she look? Like, still looks the same. Like, as when? Like when she was young. I'm like, okay.
And you don't question it.
No, I do not. I also didn't know what she looked like when she was young, so. But I'm happy he's happy.
Yeah.
I actually did see him a year after he passed. I saw him in my dreams, and it made me feel at peace. So I was happy for him.
Did he have a message for you?
Be happy. Just live on and be happy.
That's a beautiful message. My memory. Do you feel like you're trying to, what does be happy mean to you?
Just to live my life and show my emotions as much as I can and be who I am. I hope I do find love like he had with Grandma.
I'm sure you will. I mean, I've found that, and I've had really good advice from friends that like when you are happy and you are yourself, then you don't need to worry about finding. Love will find you.
Even though him and Grandma met really young. Like,
well,
I think she was like 19.
I mean, that was the thing at the time, right? Like,
that's true.
People were meeting super, like...
But didn't she, like, ignore him when they first met or something?
I don't remember the full story.
I think he was like, it was like when they first met, she was in nursing school, and he was like the big man on campus or something, and she was like, walked away. I'm like, but they ended up together. So, playing hard to get, maybe it's a good thing.
Maybe. I mean, courting is like the courting process may have changed a little bit since the 40s. So I don't know if that's gonna be the same.
No, probably not. Because now people are like, if you're not on the dating app, I'm not. Walk away. Okay.
It's interesting. I've had a lot of chats with people about has dating really changed? And maybe the ways that we do dating has changed, but some of the things that we used to do in courting really haven't. Like, you want to show off your best qualities to your potential partner. That's how you impress someone, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So even on the dating apps, you're gonna put all the things that are interesting about you, right? Or when you go talk to someone at a club or a bar or whatever, you're gonna talk about the things that are make you interesting, make you seem more interesting, more memorable, right?
Yeah.
From what I hear. Yeah. So isn't that similar as the courting process? you said grandma was interested in him because he was the big man on campus. Isn't that a memorable thing? Like,
Yeah,
so how is that? That's not so different from what we're doing today.
that's true. Well, at least not that I've experienced yet, but hopefully.
You know what? I think 29 is the year.
I think so.
Yeah. And like I said, it's never too late. Never too old to find love. Sometimes for some it takes a little bit longer. For some they can do it a little bit faster. But you know what? The important thing I think is to focus on you and being happy. Because no one is going to ever make you happy.
Yeah.
Like no one is going to be your happiness or complete you. I hate this idea that you need a partner to complete. That means you're broke. You aren't whole.
Are we all though?
I mean,
there's a little
that's
in some way, some people think they are. There's just like a little piece that they don't know about that needs somebody to be help them out.
it's interesting, an interesting perspective.
That's why people say soulmates.
So, do you feel like you are looking for someone to fill a piece?
I think so. At least to make me feel complete. Because
What do you
I can be
think?
complete by myself, but it feels nice to me to have like something I can call soulmate.
So, what do you think is missing that you can't fill on your own?
Um, actually don't know. I wouldn't know until I actually find him. That's how most people are. At least until you find who you're looking for, will you feel like, hey, I'm okay now.
So, I have this thing where I think that I think people will expose their own truth when they talk about how they think other people are. So, by you saying that maybe that most people like are a little broken and need that soulmate to find something about them to complete, maybe that means that maybe your divergence from this is linked to you being out of your path, and maybe you're really looking for something to bring you back on your path.
I think so.
So maybe I say don't tie you getting back on your path and you feeling more complete to another person, because no one can ever you can't control anyone.
Yeah.
You can't control like the people in our lives. We can't control who we're going to meet. Can't control the events and the situations that we go through. We can't control the weather, but we can control ourselves, how we're going to like experience the world and how we experience ourselves. So maybe this is part of your journey to like do some like reflection. Say, what is it that I'm expecting someone else, like a soulmate, to do that I can't do myself? And maybe there you'll find the answer to why you've how you've gotten off your path, how you can get back on your path.
That sounds good.
And I encourage everyone who's listening that like if you think you need a partner to complete you, if you think you need someone to fix something about you that is broken, maybe the answer is to reflect on what do you think is broken? Why can't you fulfill that yourself? And maybe through that you'll find a way to make yourself feel more complete, more you, more authentically yourself. Listening to that voice deep within you that's saying like, Maro, you should do this. It feels good. Or this does not feel good. Maybe we shouldn't do this situation. Like you were, as a bit of a meta conversation, you were very nervous about being on this.
Yeah.
Like you were even right before you were thinking about not doing it. But here we've been having a chat and it's been like over 40 minutes and you seem to be flowing, you've been like really open. So what do you think was holding you back that isn't holding you back anymore?
I've always been somebody that I'd never been out of a circle. So I just need help to get out of my own head, my own space. So I'm happy that I even have friends that's helping me get out of my own comfort zone. So it's just hard for me to get out of that comfort zone. So it's nice to get out of it. Like now I'm finally out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
'Cause I've always been shy in front of a camera, on a microphone. I get stage fright sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, most of the times.
How does it feel being out of the comfort zone in this case?
It feels nice. So I want to try to explore that more. Like to travel, that'll help me get out of my own comfort zone and to spread my wings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful. I think that's a good thing, and I think that this is a good way to like grow yourself, like pushing your boundaries in a way that's safe, in a way that's like doesn't feel threatening to you. Like you know that I'm your brother, and I wasn't gonna pull any fast ones on you. I wanted to create like an environment
You
that
never
you're.
know. You never
What do
know
you
with family.
mean? What do you mean? Can you
Hey,
not trust family?
depends on the family, but luckily I can trust you. So some family, like parents, they do fast ones. So
Really?
at least
Well,
to me.
I think we have to remember that our parents are people too. And they're just as confused and just as lost as we are. And sometimes they'll do things that they think are right because they love us and they're not trying to harm us. But sometimes like what they're doing and how they act and what they do, we are the ones who interpret it. We don't understand their meaning. We don't understand the full like context for why they're doing or why they're saying the things that they're saying. And this is true for everyone. When you eventually have a partner, sometimes your partner is going to piss you off. Sometimes they're going to do something and you're going to be like, why'd you do that? Like, you're an idiot. Like, you shouldn't have done that. Or how could you do this to me? How could you say something so callous? And oftentimes, they're not trying to hurt you. Most of the times, they're not trying to hurt you. In fact, sometimes they're just saying things that they feel within themselves. And they're not thinking about you when they say it. They're thinking about what's in their own head. And you are the one, you don't understand what's in their head. You don't know what's in my head. You don't know what's in mom's head. You don't know what's in our brother's head. But we hear these words and we interpret them with our heads. We're the ones who provide them meaning. So maybe these things that our parents do that feel like erratic and chaotic and hurtful, it's how we're interpreting it. It's our own judgment on it. And that can be a sign of like pain, of scars that maybe we've had in the past that need to be healed. And so if you, Maro, and especially if anyone in the audience, if you feel like a loved one is hurting you, maybe more than you expected, maybe the issue isn't so much that they are intentionally hurting you, and that instead maybe the issue is that there are some scars that need to be healed within you. And so I challenge you to think about it in that frame of mind. Change the perspective of how you look at the issue. And part of this is an easy to remember mantra that I have called "Nothing is personal." Everything will happen in the world. Things happen all the time, but it doesn't mean that has anything to do with us. Sometimes I go walk down the road with a friend, and I've used this example a lot because it's a really good example. And someone will look at him. They'll say, "Did you see that guy? He looked at us weird." Or if you're driving, right? Someone honks, and you're like, "That asshole. Why do you honk at me?" Well, sometimes there's like, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know what they're doing when they're honking. You don't know what the person is doing when they're looking. Sometimes people just do things for reasons we'll never understand. And that's okay. And the whole point of nothing is personal is don't focus on it. If we assume that like most of the things that happen don't have anything to do with us, and we have the freedom to ignore a lot of that irrelevant information, we can focus on what's important. Focus what's in your heart, in your soul. Focus on that harmony. Focus on your own inner happiness. Don't let the clouds upset you. The clouds aren't here because of anything personal, right? They're not specifically hovering above us to screw with us. They just are. The world just is, you know? You talked about going to Japan, and we talked about the cherry blossoms, and that's a reason you want to go. But you know what? If the cherry blossoms don't bloom while you're there, it's not because they're spiting you. They're ready. You're on their time.
That is definitely true.
So, yeah, I hope some of the things that I rambled about make a little bit of sense.
They do.
Yeah. That's good. And I think a lot of the answers that we seek in why are we off our path, or why can't we find the love of our lives, or why are we struggling with like the things that used to be easy, or why are our relationships fumbling, a lot of those answers aren't in the outside world. A lot of them are within us. So I think there's a lot of power in taking a step back, intentionally sitting with the thoughts, with the emotions like we talked about, and experiencing them. Don't judge them, just be aware of them. Listen to your heart, soul, your mind. Yeah. And I'm your brother, so if you ever need some on hands help, I'm happy to help out. Like, you can always call me.
Of course, this time zone difference. We'll see about that.
It's only 3 hours.
Yeah, well, it depends on where you are, though.
True. I'm hoping to do some traveling and take Authentic Chaos on the road.
If anything, I'll text you and make sure you're available. Be like, are you awake?
So now that 29 is upon us and 30 may eventually be around the corner.
Okay, don't get there. I'm not ready. I just turned 29.
29 first. What are some intentions you would like to take?
Like, as what example?
Like, these aren't plans. We're not trying to make plans here. We're trying to set, like, what do you want to, like, how do you want yourself to be? It's like kind of plans for ourselves, but like more about things we can change, or more about things we can affect, like our own, like maybe like this year I, for instance, took an intention to strengthen the relationships that I let kind of wither through apathy. Like, talking to family members that are more distant, that I haven't talked to in a while, and trying to experience them and explore them in new ways. Or an intention could be to get out of your comfort zone, try new things, to push your boundaries. So, do you want to set any of such intentions?
Mostly just to get out of my own comfort zone and to get out of the house more.
Mm-hmm.
And just make more new friends and experience more in life.
Yeah. So do you feel like the house is like a metaphor for your comfort zone?
I think so. Basically is my comfort zone right now, but now that it's like, since our backyard was done, it's like my body's, that's what it feels like. I'm actually going out of my comfort zone a little bit every like an inch by inch. I'm getting out.
Okay. So it's interesting that you pointed out, like, like that the backyard work is like kind of an analogy to you moving out of your comfort zone. So do you feel like, when you push your comfort zone, do you feel like you're increasing the area of the comfort zone?
I think so, because like with my friend, she's actually helping me get out of my space, get out of my head.
Oh, how so?
She experienced more. So, and even though she's younger than me, she knows more about life, and it makes me feel like it's nice to have her like to help me get out of my comfort zone.
What does know more about life mean?
Like she gets out more, like she hangs out with more people, and she gives me advice and stuff. So
So like she's kind of has
she's
more
like a guru.
she has more diverse experiences.
Yeah.
Oh, so you refer to her as a guru, so like a teacher. What are some lessons that she's taught you?
To try, like, 'cause her birthday's coming out, so I'm going to go with her to the bar and to experience it. Of course, she's gonna help me with the drinks area because I don't drink.
Because you don't drink, you don't go to bars. Yeah.
So it's gonna be nice having her advice and help me out with that.
Okay. So someone to like help show you the ropes and like how like people socialize.
She's like, I'm gonna help you get drunk. I'm like, just help me get into that, and then we'll go from there.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever seen you drunk.
I'm not gonna get drunk. No, just like my limit. I know my limit, so I'm just gonna stay with my limit. Maybe I drink more, but that's enough.
Have you ever been drunk?
No.
Why not?
I don't know if I'm ever gonna be comfortable enough to get drunk unless I'm in my own like in my own house. I just never been a huge fan of alcohol, so hopefully with like experiencing this is gonna help me like not like love it and get addicted to it, but at least experience it and be more adult.
Well, why do you think it's part of being adult?
I think it's just like upgrading my taste buds and experiencing like the grown-up way of living, not the getting passed out drunk, stuff like that, but having at least more fun.
Okay, so
at least to me, but because I never experienced it myself.
Is it something that you want, or is it something that you think you should want?
I want to experience this.
So why don't you experience it today? It's your birthday.
Because I never really thought about it actually. I would, but I don't know.
I'll say that. So it's interesting that you refer to it the grown-up way, grown-up fun, it's and like being an adult, like a rite of passage. A lot of these words to me seem like you're maybe doing it because other people want you to do it rather than you want to do it yourself.
It just makes me feel like I missed out when I was at least like when I was in college a little bit, and at least getting out of the house and experiencing that.
So if you missed out, why do you feel like you missed out? Did it feel like you wanted to do it, but you didn't, like you were keeping yourself from doing it?
Yeah. Like I was giving myself a restriction. You know yourself, don't try it. It might not be a good idea.
So this is part of like kind of pushing you out of your comfort zone. Okay, that's fair. I would say, yeah, try it out. I think there's nothing wrong with trying things. Like I always say, try things out like that feel safe at least once. Push your boundaries in safe ways, but then reflect on it and see like, is this something I want? Like there are plenty of people who have plenty of fun but are sober. Like you don't have to drink even if you go to bars. Like I sometimes go to bars and socialize and I don't even drink anything. I'll have like seltzer water as I'm like hanging out with my friends. And that's totally fine. You can be the DD. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, people will like praise you for it, right? And if you can have fun, then that's what matters. If you can have a good time, if you're happy, that's what matters. It's not like what you're putting into your body, not like what other people think. So think about like what makes Maro happy, not what do other people think I should do to make me happy.
Yeah. Well, I do want to at least try it, and because I know my limit's like either 1 or 2 drinks, because as soon as I get a headache, I'm done.
But if you've never been drunk, how do you know what your limit is?
I start out from that limit, and I will try, but I think I'm gonna stick with the probably 1 drink if I go out.
I think that's respectable. I think that's very fair. All right, Maro Jun, we've been talking for about an hour, and I think this is usually a good time to wrap up. So, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to say to end on? Nothing at all? Nothing to even for your birthday thoughts?
I just hope I have a good day, the rest of the day, which I know I'm going to because I have family with me.
There you go. That's beautiful.
Well, most of my family.
When you have family with you, like, you can't have a bad day, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Maro, for joining me on the podcast. It was great to have you on your birthday, especially. And to you listeners, thank you for experiencing this conversation with us. If you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, please like and share, subscribe to the channel or follow me. And we have an Instagram account that I promised to actually put on the video this time. I'm getting better on my my marketing.
Well, you're learning, you're getting there.
Yeah. It's hard to juggle all these things.
You're just one person.
Yeah.
No one can fault you for that.
Yeah. So thank you again for watching, and as always, embrace your chaos with kindness.